decorating your house or whatever else we do for Christmas or the holiday. Thank you. So we have about an hour's worth of sharing here with you. This webinar is recorded, and we will be sending you the link so that you'll be able to access it. I think Angela's going to pop it up into YouTube, so it'll be easy to get a hold of. So we just wanted to clarify, so there's a clear understanding. Unlike our prior years with State System of Support, where Angela did her Act 82 webinar and Jean did her SAS webinar, her PDE webinar, and whatever, we're going to do sort of this cohesive piece and ask that, you know, there might be parts of this webinar that perhaps don't apply to you, but we think if we all have an understanding of what each other is doing, we can see how all these pieces sort of interconnect. So suggesting that anyone who's engaged in any aspect of the statement of work would be important for them for you to be here and to listen. One of the issues that we've been dealing with is how do we best notify you that there is a scheduled session. We're going to establish a closer link with our regional leads. We think that will help, but we have to thank Connie Kindler because I believe Connie got this webinar out for all of you as well. So we're trying to think about how we can best do that, because we know that we've seen some people lately who have suggested that when are we doing our first webinar? This is actually the second webinar. So if you have any good ideas, ship them off to Angela or me in addition to what we already talked about. And then also thinking about the most logical place to post the webinar links. I'm not sure if as an IUCC group or as PAIU, there is some bulletin board or some site in which we could also post these links. So again, if you have any good ideas, ship them our way, because we don't want this to be the best kept secret. We want this to be something that's available for everyone whenever you need to get a hold of what's there. So what we're going to do today is, after we move forward on this very brief introduction, is take a look at, via Lee Burgett, that piece of the statement of work that deals with college and career readiness. Kristen's going to do in about 20-25 minutes a piece on her digging deeper, her wonderful documents, and Brian Hayward from PLS is going to give you a quick sort of walk through the new SAS and ask for some input from you as well. And then Angela and I in the last 5 minutes are going to give you some updates on such things as Act 82, PBA, and one or two other small items. So that's what our hour is going to look like. So I am going to see if Lee is with us and see if I can give her the ability to talk. So be patient with me as I figure this out.
Give change presenter.
Okay, be patient here. I'm just trying to find Lee in this queue. Okay, so Lee, I believe you have the ability now to speak. Are you with us?
Lee, you would need to accept, you should have been prompted, this is Angela, you should have been prompted that you've been now made the presenter, and you should be able to take control. I'm going to also go, can you just, go find her again and unmute. I think it's in alphabetical order, so A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Okay. Let's call this technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. Just be patient. I apologize.
Okay, unmute there. There you go. Okay, Lee, hopefully now your phone. Yay, thank you.
Okay, yes, I heard someone say I'm unmuted, so great. Okay, so as you can see, the slide there indicates that the statement of work is looking for the IUs to provide professional development and consultation to any of the school districts or career and technical centers that are developing or beginning to implement the college and career readiness or the counseling plan. Some people call it the Chapter 339 guidance plan. There are a number of resources that are available for you to take a look at. We can also provide professional development to you if you would like that. On the PACareerstandards.com, there are, again, a number of resources that the school districts have access to help them to develop their career guidance plan. And when you go to that website, on the right-hand side is a box that's called 339 Counseling Plan. If you click on that, you'll see the whole host of materials that are available, including we have a Pennsylvania Companion Guide to the ASCA model for career counseling. And again, we have a step-by-step guide on how to build, implement, and sustain, as well as evaluate that comprehensive school counseling program. We have a plan outline and template. We have guidance on how to establish and use an advisory committee. We have the template on how to establish a monthly counseling calendar, as well as how to develop curriculum that can be used in the classroom. And what we do, we have 2 individuals who serve as consultants that work with school districts, career and technical centers, to help them through this entire process. And there are actually 4 levels of training that they provide, and we have a template for what that plan should include, and there are 13 elements. So each of the trainings covers a different section of that template. We do have exemplary career plans that are available. The ones that are online on the careerstandards.com, those are the early versions. We have other plans that we could share with you if you would like. One of them is Lebanon. And Lebanon is a urban district, and their plan is exemplary because they have completed the 13 elements. They've used extensive data reporting and supporting tools to demonstrate how they're doing things within their districts. So again, this website has a lot of resources. This year, the 2 consultants are working within IU 3, 9, 15, 17, and 18. And with that, I'll see if you have any questions.
If you have a question, just type it into the chat box, and Jean and I will be monitoring that, and then we can state that for Lee.
And as you're thinking about questions that you might have, I just want to let you know that I had the opportunity to read the Lebanon School District Plan, and just to echo what Lee said, it's exemplary. Lee, I'm not sure, is that posted on the careerstandards.com site yet, or will it be?
It will be, but it isn't on there right now. But again, if you wanted to distribute that to the IU directors, that would be fine.
I had the opportunity to look at most of the, as you say, those preliminary plans that were on the site, which were probably works in progress. This really far surpasses anything I read there. So again, it's a good model, and the fact that it's an urban district, I lend some credence to it as well.
And some folks have been mentioning in the chat box that they can't see the slides. I think it's when we turned over the presentation to Lee, I think that's where the error came. So once we assume control back of the presentation, you'll be able to see the slide. I think Jean is in the process of doing that now.
Hi. Okay. Well, slowly but surely here. Let's try this.
Yep.
I think you should be able to see it now. So my humble apologies. Obviously, I'm a digital dummy here. Okay. So anything in the chat box, Angela?
No, it was just about seeing the slides. I think now that what Lee just spoke to is referenced now on that, so you can kind of see that as Jean and I will speak to at the conclusion of this, this parallels kind of what some of the recommendations are for some new measures on the SPP. So getting familiar with the resources that Lee just mentioned, I think it's going to be great. So hopefully I can see it now, so I think you're good.
Yeah, and just again to echo the PD that the folks we have available, Betty Hombo, I believe, and Mike Thompson are the two folks that are doing the roadshow, if you will. I know they presented at the SAS Institute and were very well received and are really knowledgeable, committed folks.
We just received a question from Dan Richards as to whether or not the PowerPoint will be shared, and yes, we will. When we share the link to the webinar, we will also attach the PowerPoint.
Yeah, and no problem with that at all. Okay, so Kristen, I'm going to bumble through this again, and I am going to make Kristen Leewald the
Actually, I think you could just give her your keyboard and mouse, Jean, and then unmute her mic, and then that way she'll have the PowerPoint, unless she has it on her screen already.
Okay, she's not showing as an organizer though.
Yeah, so
see,
yeah, so okay. Yeah. Kristen, do you have the slides on your? Okay, so can you?
I think they lost audio. Have you folks? Someone in the chat room, did we lose audio? I just got a text message from someone.
No, they can still hear you. Everybody's hearing you.
Okay.
You just need to unmute Kristen's mic.
Yep.
Hey, can you all hear me?
My yes, yes.
And now you should, Kristen, are you able to control Jean's computer?
No, but I'm going to show my screen here. I just got a command to do that. So let me go ahead and do that. I think.
If not, Kristen, I have your PowerPoint, and I can be your Vanna White if we need to do that.
Tell me if you're seeing. Are you seeing it yet?
No, I am not.
No.
You still see my screen?
Anything coming up there?
Yeah, I see it, Kristen.
Okay, is it looking all right? Do I need to just close my little palette? How's that?
Perfect.
Is it appropriate?
Yep, yep.
All right. Well, I'd just like to start off and thank the baker at the Giant grocery store up the street, because that's who's handling my cookie baking for the holidays. So a special shout out to the baker at Giant. I'm not sure who, Dean, I don't know who has time to bake cookies anymore, but my folks up at Giant are pretty awesome. Anyhow, great to be here with all of you today before we all get a chance for a few days off. I am one of a series of tools I guess that Jean and Angela will be highlighting with all of you throughout the year. I'm hoping many of you are familiar with these visuals that are sitting here in front of the screen, the digging deeper into content area documents that have been shared out at the trainings, but there's some of you that are not. You also may have some staff that are not familiar yet with these. So we shared these back with the department, and Deputy Secretary STEM had asked that we make sure that intermediate units, RLs, CROs are all familiar with this tool, that the word is out to LEAs about this as a key tool and a key resource available for people. So that's my intent, for a brief period of time with you all here this morning, is to make sure everyone is familiar with these, knows the intent, knows possible, and here's possible ideas for how they can be used. So, okay, why am I not working here? Hold on a second. There we go. Is my PowerPoint advancing? I just want to make sure.
Yep.
I've got a couple monitors here. I want to make sure you're seeing what I hope you to see. So, have you seen it? Has your staff seen these documents? Are you already using them? I know some IUs have already been using these as they've been out doing some work out in schools. Do all of your colleagues at your IU, do all of you do all the orals, the chief recovery officers, are they familiar with these? I have sent them out to Glenn Zahner, who works with the academic recovery liaisons. They received those as a part of an update that I provided to them. So they have them, but I think any connections we can make to help people, kind of bring these back up when they're having content-specific discussions with schools and districts would be important to do. Are we all using them at a time that's appropriate, obviously, to use them with districts and schools? If you or any of your colleagues attended the session on these at the December SAS Institute provided by Cindy Goldsworthy, you've heard about these. So if you've said yes to any of the above, some of this will not be new to you. If you've been in our trainings this fall that we provided as a PBAS statewide team, these documents should not be new to you, but there will be some of the information today that's new, because our intent is also to have you think, where do these fit into the work of schools and districts, and where do these fit into our work as intermediate units? The PowerPoint for today, there are actually trainer notes that are included for each of the slides. So if you want to take any or all of these slides, go back and turn around and, possibly a shorter discussion back with your districts and any type of a forum with job-alike groups, or back with your professional development training teams at the intermediate unit, then you can use the slides to do that, as well as the trainer notes. Trying to save all of you, preparation time, since if we are talking about these, we'll all be saying similar things. So I want to make sure today everybody understands the purpose, the value, the intent of the digging deeper into content area resources. Think about use of these at the district and the school level by different types of educators and for different purposes. Think about how these can be used as a tool to support your work as you work with schools, and making sure you and your IU colleagues are all aware of this. What we don't want to, we often all run into this is 2-3 years down the road, people say, I never even heard of that. Now, sometimes we know they've been with us in sessions, and we think, how did people not hear about this? But we know that does happen. So we really want to, have you thinking today, how could you go back and, once the new year begins, put a very strategic plan in place to make sure all groups, essential groups in your districts and at your intermediate units, are aware of this tool, the intent, the purpose, and the use of it. Was there something there you were adding, Jean? Did I hear a little something? No? Okay, I thought somebody was trying to add something in there. So we have gotten significant feedback on these, which has all been positive. And we just had to share a few of these, especially the first one, which was, sometimes the feedback you hear about, training and resources is priceless, where someone said, where have these questions been all my life? Now it's not like there's any of the content that's, new or, no one's ever heard of. It's groundbreaking. It is the effective work we should be doing in curriculum assessment, instruction, and organization in our schools, but having it all pulled together in one place to help people as they're needing to dig deeper and ask questions seems to be very valued by people as we've been providing this throughout the fall. People saying these are so useful, I have some ideas now where to start, start with figuring, out why I'm seeing the data I'm seeing. I'm going to use these in our PLCs. But we know that you are key in your role as regional and local supports to schools, and you have the potential to really get this out to people that we haven't, even had a chance to have any interaction with in a training or a webinar. And really, these aren't specific to PBAS. We just developed them because we needed something to go deeper when people were looking at their growth results and other data to help them dig deeper into why they might be seeing the results that they're seeing. So they're not specific to PBAS. We just, as you all know that it's hard for teachers and administrators to often know what questions to ask, to take a strategic approach to asking questions about why they may be seeing the results that they're seeing in their student performance results. Where did they come from? There has been a, kind of a 2-year evolution. Digging deeper questions at the teacher and school levels to help people, really examine at a deeper level root cause, why they may be seeing the results that they're seeing with their school level results and or their teacher level results. When I say generic, I mean they were not content specific. They were very broad, digging deeper questions about curriculum, instruction, assessment, and organization that were also crosswalked with the 4 domains of the framework for teaching. But we heard oh, could we get these content specific? It really would help if we had these content specific, oriented questions. So that was the work that occurred over the summer, where content specific, digging deeper questions were developed with feedback, input, review from maybe some of you that are here on the call today. We reached out to people that had expertise in ELA, in Keystone Lit, in math, in Algebra 1, in science and biology, to take a look at the core set of questions, give feedback, and we received very, very helpful, extensive feedback from those who were part of that process this summer. And a huge thank you. We know nobody has time for extra things on their plate, but everybody was so willing and so helpful in providing that feedback. And the names of those individuals are included on the front of each of those documents. We also shared this, as I said, with PDE, which again is why we're here today, because Deputy Secretary STEM wanted to make sure that everyone out there in the field is aware of these documents. Do all the schools know about these, have their hands on these, had a chance to take a look at these, know how they may be able to use them in their work in improving performance of students in their schools. I would probably think it's fair to say an extra, kind of extra level of support to make sure this information is in the hands of the most struggling schools within your region would be very appreciated as well, to make sure that those schools that are really working hard to try to raise student achievement know the resources and the tools they have available as they look at putting plans in place for their students. So who are some of the different audiences, and who can you help make sure this information is provided to? District, school level administrators, different groups of teachers, whether that's classroom teachers or any type of teacher in a teacher leader role. We as an IU, we as IUs work with those type of job-alike groups, but then many of our, and have job-alike meetings. However, there's also other audiences, different groups of people in schools that work together, and we want to make sure those are out in the hands of those groups as well. District and school level data teams, grade level, teams or course specific teams that might work together, as well as professional learning communities. So what can you do? One simple thing is to make sure that the documents are at least sent to every one of the job-alike groups that you all have an opportunity to communicate with as an intermediate unit. For example, many IUs have, listservs for different administrative groups, for different teacher leader groups, content-specific groups, anything to make sure this information gets out into those hands. As you take a look at the PowerPoint and the trainer notes, we kind of put some getting started language for an email in the trainer notes to give you something to kind of start with and catch people's attention. Now, obviously, you can customize that. We're finding people need to really get this document in their hands. We all know people get links to go out to sites and download things, and it's easy to just kind of move on to the next email because you have an action you have to take on that. So any of these groups that you have in a face-to-face forum, you can take the copies, take a couple minutes. Once people literally spend 5 minutes taking a look at what's in there, they got it. They're hooked. They're in. They start to see the value of using the information in there. So if anybody needs any help with getting copies, if there's any kind of constraints you have with copying for some reason, let me know. We'll do our best to help get copies of materials out to you to provide to the different audiences you work with if that should be a constraint. So please let us know about that. So what's the purpose? Well, the purpose is to move, which is where people often get stuck, moving from what we see in the data to why do we see this in the data, that there are actually reasons behind what has created the student performance results, the achievement and the growth, whether that's positive results or less than favorable results, but that there are reasons behind what people are seeing. And we sometimes see schools putting plans in place that appear to be making change for change's sake, meaning they have a need. Student performance may need to be, improved. However, it may not be based on a careful, systematic analysis of the data and of their system to see what it is they really need to do to put a plan in place. So anything that can help them more strategically with that focus, as we all know, will move towards a plan and move towards actions that may be more likely to influence the achievement and growth of students. We have all in our work with school improvement probably seen action plans gone bad, where an action plan has been developed for compliance purposes, you know, just to get the plan done, get it submitted, get it signed off on, reviewed, whatever may be needed, but that's happened before there has been really good work done to analyze what might be creating these results. And we all know, we've all lived this, you know, as those who work with schools and districts, that the best written plan won't work if we haven't really gotten to identifying root cause and not carefully considered and identified what appears to really be creating the results that we've been yielding, whether they're very positive results or whether they're less than positive results, and we really need to make some changes. So thinking about getting to that root cause, oftentimes, and I think the graphic is a good visual that represents, we spend, you know, a lot of time talking about the symptoms or the results of what happens, you know, looking at the data versus getting to why, getting to the root cause, the problem, potential reasons for why we might be seeing the results that we're seeing. So that's the intent of these digging deeper tools, that they really come into play with determining, you know, and you know, in some respects, hypothesizing what is that root cause, but doing a more strategic job of taking a look at the work that schools are doing with curriculum instruction, assessment, and organization to make sure a more focused, strategic plan is put in place versus going from, here's where we're not seeing growth and achievement, what we can do about it. Well, let's try to figure out. Example that I just heard about from Jen Ross from a school district in the western part of the state. They literally took one of the questions under the curriculum area, and it was in the area of science, and really started, you know, digging into that in terms of the written curriculum and what it is that teachers, you know, were actually held responsible to teach in terms of their science curriculum. One question got them to determine that they were only teaching half of what the state assessment is assessing. They weren't teaching half of science. So it didn't take much to just have one question, and their change in their growth results went from a red to a blue. Now, is that the only thing that changed? I don't know that. But it was one question to go from, we think we've got everything in order and in line and everything's, you know, the way it needs to be, to, oh my gosh, we're not teaching half of what we should be teaching or what kids should be learning and doing with regard to science. So sometimes a simple question can really, you know, help take people in the right direction. You want to make sure your staff is familiar with the documents. There are three. There's one for English Language Arts. There's 5 questions for the grade ranges 3 to 5, questions for 6 to 8, and then questions for Keystone Literature. Same thing for Math and Keystone Algebra 1, 3 to 5, 6 to 8, and Keystone Algebra 1 questions. And for Science as well, questions for Science Grade 4, Science Grade 8, and Keystone Biology. Now you will find, I guess, what I would call some bridging type questions in there, you know, that may ask, for example, for Science, to ask some questions about K4, you know, to ask some questions across grades 5 through 8 for Science. So there are some questions that I'd say are kind of system level questions that may even go beyond the school level and may be more district oriented questions, but they seemed critical to include for people to really comprehensively ask the questions that they might want to be asking as they try to determine the root cause, or root causes for that matter. Now, interestingly, there are 2 versions of the document available. There's a consolidated version, which you see on the cover page. It says consolidated, where it just lists the question. However, we also did a comprehensive version. And you can see from this screenshot, this is a question from a school level question, ELA grades 3 to 5. On the left, in the consolidated version, you see, is the grade 3 to 5 ELA written curriculum aligned to the PA core standards? Also aligned to planning and prep under the framework for teaching. However, if you go to the right-hand side, you see that same question listed there, C1, but then there are 6 other probing questions to really dig deeper Because sometimes people will go, yeah, well, let's go a little deeper. Let's really ask some more specific questions about the alignment of the written curriculum and the PA core standards. We thought the comprehensive would be too much. We didn't want to overwhelm people, kind of turn people off and go, whoa, this is so much, I can't do this. So we went back and came up with a consolidated version. However, and we still have both versions posted. However, what we're finding, everyone wants and goes to the comprehensive. So we may at some point just, we'll wait till at the end of the school year, but may phase out that consolidated version and stick with the comprehensive version because that's what everybody has wanted to get their hands on. So we thought we were providing something that at least initially a little less overwhelming, though it still is a lot of questions, but people are wanting the details. They are wanting the specifics to make sure they ask the right questions. When you look inside each of the documents, there are content-specific questions at the system level, meaning district and school level questions. There are, same thing, questions for the teacher level. So this example that you see here on the screen, this is ELA, grades 3 to 5. There are system level questions for curriculum, instruction, assessment, and organization. There are teacher-specific questions for curriculum, instruction, assessment, and organization. And that is highlighted by, you can see the visuals that we have on the screen that'll say teacher or it'll say district/school. The questions are also organized or crosswalked in two ways. Specifically, you'll see the primary organization is around curriculum, instruction, assessment, and organization. However, each one of the questions are crosswalked back to the framework for teaching to one or more of the domains, coded with, you can see, planning and preparation, instruction, you'll see classroom environment, and professional responsibilities with appropriate, 1 or 2 letter code for that. So we did that because we wanted people to see the connection back to, looking at our professional practices as educators. However, the primary organization is around curriculum, instruction, assessment, and organization to keep people going to a deep level, talking about curricular issues, talking about instructional issues, talking about assessment issues and needs, and talking about organization of classroom and school resources, supports, time, etc. We have received feedback from people that this crosswalk is helpful. We've heard from the district and school administrators this is helpful for them to go back to show people the connections, that the questions we're asking we're all connecting back to for the same purpose, but they do connect back to ultimately how our evaluation system, specifically the observation and practice rubric, is organized. Now you will. There were some where we went to, I think it's fair to say, a deeper level with some of the CHOW questions, curriculum, instruction, assessment, organization, that level of specificity is not spelled out to that level in the framework for teaching, but we still, I think it's fair to say, did our best to do a crosswalk over to where might this be reflected back in the framework for teaching. And that both of these organizational approaches, whether it's CHOW or organizing by the domains, provides a framework for us digging deeper into the why. Why is it we're seeing the results that we're seeing? And for people really to be asking themselves, is the identified need, problem, issue in any of these areas? Whether that's curriculum, instruction, assessment, organization, or planning, prep, classroom environment, instruction, and professional responsibilities. Is it in any of those areas? And the intent really of these is to provide a structured, strategic process for people to ask questions versus randomly coming up with questions, which, we know that's hard for people to do. People seem to get to 2 or 3 questions, then they're not quite sure what else to ask. So the intent is, we're all talking about the same content areas. Let's give people a set of structured questions or focused questions to start and continue those discussions versus trying to come up with them on their own. Now, we have many districts that are implementing Victoria Bernhardt's, framework, multiple measures. This fits in as a part of that. When we're talking about questions about curriculum, instruction, assessment, and organization, this fits into the school processes data. It's real when you're answering and discussing these questions, they're questions bringing more data to the table about why we're seeing the results that we're seeing. And that fits right in with Bernhardt's school processes questions. Now, how to use them. We talk about this in the training. One thing, and in fact, this slide itself, we specifically talk about in the training, and I know it was talked about at the SAS Institute. We are encouraging people to use the comprehensive version because it does probe deeper. But again, people need to start with where they're, at least start, and start where they're comfortable getting started. It is important that people know that these are not, while they're written in a way that you can say yes or no, every question should be followed with what's our evidence of that. And if there's not evidence that that practice is in place, then we probably can assume that it's really not solidly in place. And if people say yes, the question, then goes to, is it in place consistently and pervasively across classrooms, across grades, across subjects, across our school, whatever area that group may be looking at, or whether that's an individual teacher asking those kind of questions about their practice. It is not intended to be a checklist. You really want to determine the entry points and what questions you use based upon the district and the school. The data should help lead to decisions of where to start. Which are the priority questions to start to ask to dig deeper? And the numbers, we originally didn't number the questions because we didn't want people to think that it was a required sequence and that number 1 was more important than number 4. So, and you'll see this in the trainer notes, the numbers are purely there, and we say this in any of the sessions that we provided, for user-friendly purposes, so that if we are all sitting around together at a table, we can say, hey, on page 4, question C2, we all look at the same thing. So it's really for usability that those numbers are provided. We did try to put somewhat, I think it's fair to say, of a logical sequence in place for the questions, but that doesn't mean they have to be asked in the exact order, nor by any means does it mean they all are to be asked. People want to determine what are the questions we want to be asking ourselves to get to that next level. So the hard part really of this is for people to try to figure out their entry point. What questions are we going to have our PLCs ask? What questions are our data teams going to ask? What questions are we going to ask teachers to ask? And we believe that somewhat depends on what's the data saying, what's the information telling you. That if we have and we have 4 just kind of general examples here. If we have a school, a grade that has low achievement and low growth, and has had a history of that in a specific grade, subject, or course within a school, they probably want to start with those big questions in curriculum, instruction, assessment, and organization. Key questions about curriculum alignment, key question about clarity of instructional targets, key questions about the use of allocated time. Are we effectively using the time we have to teach the students the content and skills? And so trying to think, if we have that history of low achievement and growth, what are those key 2 to 3 questions in each of those areas, curriculum, instruction, assessment, organization, we may start with. If historically underperforming students are not growing, achievements below proficiency, maybe we start looking at the questions that are in there really focused around differentiation of instruction, access to curriculum instruction, universal screening types of questions about our assessment protocols. Do we have the right assessments in place to really find out the needs of students that are not growing and not yet proficient? And then 2 other examples. If we see similar patterns of growth and/or achievement across all buildings in a specific grade level in a district, let's go to the questions about curriculum alignment, allocated time in master schedules across schools, multi-tiered systems of support within the district and within schools. And then last example, let's say we see higher achieving students are slipping. We dig down and look at those diagnostic reports in PVOS, and we see those students in the fourth and fifth quintile, our highest achieving students in our school district and the state, are not growing, they're slipping. Well, maybe we start to pull out the questions around differentiation, flexible grouping, using projections to determine course placement, questions in there about enrichment. What are the questions to help us dig deeper into the area where we're seeing a need or we perceive that we have a problem? This is that first example I just talked about on that table that plays out more specifically for a situation where we have historically low achievement and low growth, let's say in English language arts. Here might be 4 key questions, one about curriculum, one about instruction, one about assessment, one about organization at the school level to get started with maybe a school-wide team, but then also at the teacher level to get at those similar types of issues about curriculum, instruction, assessment, and organization at the teacher level as well. But the power of these, the power of these questions will come from the discussion with the teachers, the discussions with the school-wide team that may be approaching, asking themselves these questions, and what's the evidence we have in place of these practices being in place consistently and pervasively across our school or across my classroom. Now, those are some examples of, kind of where to start, the entry point to using those questions. We also want you as regional providers of services to schools to think about where might your work as IUs, different roles, initiatives, services that you provide, connect back with the work of LEAs when they're using these digging deeper questions. And these are just some examples. These are not, this is it. This was just really to spark some ideas to think about the work that your staff does at your intermediate unit and supports to districts, how they might be using these digger deeping documents, and where there's really, kind of a cross connection there, where if districts are doing, district-wide and are building, addressing systemic issues in core content areas, you might have staff providing services, whether that's comprehensive planning, school improvement, content-specific, consultants, STEM support, data services, work around PA core standards, to make sure that the staff working back with the districts that are doing that work make sure schools are digging deeper and asking themselves strategically questions into that core content area that they may be looking into. Another example, as schools are looking at focus areas for walkthroughs, that that may connect back with some of the services your staff provides in some of the areas on the right, and there's a chance for people to make sure that they really look well into the focus for those walkthroughs and classroom observations, and can use the digging deeper questions to help really hone in on the focus for that work, as well as the districts targeting their areas for professional development. If there's needs that come out of asking those questions, you often have staff working in, really could be frankly all the ones in the blue box, that can help them dig deeper and make sure their professional development is focused in the right areas, and use those questions to help strategically put that focus in place. These are just some other examples. The examples on the right being areas that many IUs provide services, the areas on the left being areas that or the work of schools where they might use the digging deeper documents, whether that be for SLO development, teacher reflection at the classroom level, schools trying to enhance the functioning of their data teams and be more strategic and focused with that work, focus for professional learning communities, as well as providing instructional coaches and teacher leaders with tools so they can strategically focus on practices in their school. They connect with many of the services we as IUs provide, whether that be around educator effectiveness, whether that be around PIC for, I think about 20 of the IUs that are providing support to PIC mentors. Looking at enhancing the data team functioning in districts, well, consultants who work at IUs in the areas of RTII, multi-tiered systems of support, data, consultation types of services can help make sure these digging deeper questions are a part of those data team processes. Enhancing PLC focus, as well as really providing a strategic tool back to instructional coaches and teacher leaders. So we just wanted to give you some ideas in terms of where there may be a crosswalk, and really that most of the consultants, whether they're on the professional development team, through special ed and or your curriculum instruction team, is everyone aware of and has their hands on these questions, and do they know where they fit into their work that they do back with districts? So we know there's been a lot of work that IUs have been doing this past year around SLO development for individual teachers, and IUs take a lead role in that. So how can the digging deeper into content, areas be helpful in that process? Well, teachers are analyzing data, determining an area of need or an area of focus, and would they not possibly develop a more strategic action plan, a plan for that student learning objective, if they asked some of those digging deeper questions, so that there actually was a focus for an area where they have need and an area where they may need development as an individual teacher. So I just wanted you to think, the whole way from the district, the school, to the teacher level, there are opportunities for these questions to help provide strategic focus. And I feel like, could I say the word strategic and focus anymore today? Holy cow. We provided this just as a visual. As you work back with your teams, you may want to sit down and have them think, let's learn, make sure everybody's on the same page, aware of these resources. How are we using them now? Let's think about all the initiatives and areas we provide service, and where do we want to make sure we connect this tool in on behalf of the teachers and administrators in our schools. You have those internal opportunities to show that relevance in the use of these. Those job-alike meetings that you provide at your IU, we'd hope that in addition to emailing, these out to the different groups that you have communication with, you could also bring these in a tangible form, meaning, we all do want to get away from, killing trees and paper and all of that, but it is helping people if they literally open up, whether that's electronically or on paper, open up the documents, take a few minutes to look at them, and they see, oh my gosh, and we hear this time and time again, this is something we need to be using. So they just need a few minutes to be given a chance to go inside the documents and look at the questions that are in those. So getting them out there. Any of you who participated in our trainings, we have access to them off the PBAS website. We have a link to Live Binder. They're also up as a key resource on the SAS Portal. So we'd ask you to be thinking, how can you get these electronically and physically into the hands of the people who need them, the hands of the people who are doing the kind of work in schools and districts that were included back on those two slides that talked about a link between IU and district services. And what are all the initiatives and activities that you're responsible for that could be enhanced, and that your team could be even possibly align more around the use of these digging deeper questions, whether it's somebody working in math, somebody working in literacy, somebody working in the area of science, but really taking a consistent approach across your team as well. So in summary, your work is key to the effective use of these. We know you are a key communication tool back to the schools and districts in your region. If you could be thinking how you and your consultants at your IU would use these, how are you going to guide your LEAs in the effective use of these and communicate and provide these tools to make sure everybody out in your schools and districts have access to these. We have the links in the PowerPoint. Many ways to go and get these. I do know, and I'll turn the audio over to Jean here, that Jean started a PLC, an open PLC in the SAS Portal as a way to access these as well, and those 3 documents will also be available up there in that SAS PLC. Last, before I turn it over to Jean, we've said this to everyone, the teachers, the administrators, you as IUs, this was our first version of these content-specific questions. If anyone finds anything of concern or error, we miss something, critical, please let us know. We have not heard any of that kind of feedback yet, and we're confident that we're not that good at not missing something. So please do let us know, as you or your consultants, if they're looking at something and saying, well, they didn't include this, or this doesn't address that, let us know. We want to hear that feedback as we move forward with this tool into the future. So please don't hesitate to let us know any feedback you may have and how things are going with the use of these. How's it going? Anything we need to know to improve? These is a tool, we would love to know that. So, Jean, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I know I was talking about 300 miles an hour there, but you know, I know many of the people are familiar with these, and just some of this information may have been new. So, hope that was helpful for everyone. Back to you, Jean.
Thank you, Kristen. In a few moments, you'll be able to run down to the Giant and pick up your cookies.
Exactly.
So, just a little bit of elaboration. I opened that PLC last night, Digging Deeper. That's the name of it. You can go into the communities, do a search for Digging or Deeper. It'll come up. It's an open community. You can join it. To date, I've populated with the short and long versions of the docs that Kristen just went through with you, and also I've populated with the PowerPoint she just presented. However, there was one minor edit that she asked that we make, and I've not been able to go in and replace it, but I will do that as soon as this webinar is over, so you can pull down that presentation and it will be yours. And again, even if you go into a school district and you do a presentation, they're also welcome to join this PLC as well. And there are also forums in there for opportunities to provide feedback. Kristen's a moderator of that, so she'll be able to see what's going on there. So thank you very much. I wanted to go on here because one of the things we heard from some of you is that, you know, we've got this kind of new SAS site going on, and are we going to, and there is something in our state system of support that says we should provide training to districts. What is it we should do? How do I do it? You know, are you going to train me? Whatever. So to sort of dipstick into this, I've asked Brian Hayward from PLC, and we're going to give Brian the screen, and Brian is going to give you sort of a walk through SAS. And then I think at the conclusion, and you don't have to answer today necessarily, what is it then that we can provide to you so you can adequately go into your schools and your LEAs and do some quick turnaround training. So Brian, we're going to give you both the screen and the ability to narrate as you give us the walkthrough.
Excellent. Jean, are you able to hear me?
I am.
Wonderful. So I'm just waiting for the screen to be turned over. And are you able to see my screen?
Yep. Yes, we are.
Excellent. So first of all, I just wanted to thank you, Jean and Angela, for inviting me to join you today. I'm excited to share with the field our new re-envisioned SAS. And I really just want to take approximately 10 minutes and walk you through some of the enhanced functionality and talk to you a little bit about some of our goals when we were creating this updated portal. And then at the end, I'm going to ask for some feedback. And really the feedback that we are looking for is, what do you need from us as you go forth and work with your colleagues on SAS? So without further ado, the biggest...
Hey, Brian, this is Angela. Brian, sorry, and maybe you're getting to this, but what we see right now, which is quite beautiful actually, is a ship. So I don't know if that's what we see on your desktop. So if there's something else we should, beautiful.
Yeah, no. How about this? Can you see SAS now?
Yeah, perfect. Great, thanks.
Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it.
Thank you, Angela.
Yeah, thanks.
So as I was saying, one of our first objectives, one of the things that we were tasked with, was to make SAS responsive. And what that means now is that you can access SAS, all of the resources and all of the tools that are associated with SAS from any device. So if you are using a laptop, you have full functionality on SAS. If you're using a tablet, you have full functionality on SAS. And if you're using your smartphone, you have full functionality on SAS. So right now there is no limit to where you can access SAS and the resources on SAS from. The other thing that we were tasked with when we were upgrading SAS was to create a more integrated, cohesive version of the portal. And we did that in several ways, one of which I'm going to show you just shortly. But one of the primary ways we did this was by removing the teacher tools. So if you remember back several months ago, if you went to SAS and you wanted to access your teacher tool, you'd have to log in, you'd have to click teacher tools, you'd have to find your tool, and you'd have to use it. If you were in standards, you'd have to leave standards. If you were looking at assessment questions, you would have to leave assessment questions. as we thought about what an integrated, more cohesive SAS would look like, one of the things that we felt was important was providing you with access to all of the tools that we know and love and use without having to leave any of the content or substantive pieces of SAS that we're interested in. And to that end, after you log into SAS, if you go to My SAS, you will have access to these tools. And as I take you through the portal, you're going to find that you never lose access to these tools. You'll always have them. They will always be there. And just as a refresher, you haven't lost your profile, your e-portfolio, your website, your curriculum, your lessons, communities. You have access to FIRST and to the PD Center as well. It's all there, and it's all easily available and accessible from any location on SAS. So in addition to integrating SAS and giving everyone access to the tools from all locations, we also felt that it was important to start thinking about the end user and creating a custom experience, so that if you are a 4th grade math teacher and you're coming to SAS, perhaps it's time that we drive 4th grade math information to you, and that you don't come to SAS and have to go through ELA and social studies and geography. You can certainly if you want to, but perhaps it's math that you're most interested in. And to that end, what we did was we revised the profile. So if I go to My SAS and I go to Profile, I still have access to all of my basic information, my name, my email, my password. I can change that here. I can update my organization. But the biggest, and I think perhaps the most fundamental change to the password, and thus to the site, is this ability to establish and save preferences in SAS. So what's a preference? If you come to your profile, we're going to ask you to take a minute and set up a preference, which is really the subject and grade that you're most interested in. So if you're a high school teacher and you're focusing on algebra, we're going to ask you to list algebra as your preference. If you're an elementary school teacher and you're interested in grade 3 through grade 3 ELA math, social studies, you can set that up as one preference, or you can say I'm interested in grade 3 ELA, grade 3 math, and grade 3 social studies. And what you're going to find in just a moment is as you traverse the site, as you go to standards, as you go to assessment, as you go to materials and resources, and even curriculum framework, these preferences are going to allow you to find the materials that you are most interested in with ease. So to create a preference, you just click the plus sign to add a preference. You can type in whatever you want to call your preference. I'm going to call mine grade 4 math. And then I just use the menus to select my grade and my subject. Now, I can set up as many individual unique preferences as I want, or I can create one preference with as many subjects and grades within it. So I can build my preferences as I want to. That said, you may ask, how does a director of curriculum or an assistant superintendent of instruction and curriculum use this when they are interested in perhaps the whole array of subjects and grades? And we say that preferences are personal. So if there's a project going on that that director or assistant superintendent is really focused on for the time being, they can create a grade 3 through 5 math, ELA, and social studies preference. And then later in the year, they could adjust it. Or they can set up no preferences and have access to everything, or they can add preferences based on whichever interest they have throughout the year, over the course of the year. They're not locked into anything. So that said, I've established a preference. If I want to go to standards, I now just scroll up to the top of the screen and click standards. That's another thing I'd like to point out to you. You always will now have access to your 6 elements of SAS. You never lose access to your tools. If I want to go to an SLO, if I want to go to FIRST or community, I can do it from here. And I can move throughout my elements without having to do extra clicks, use the back button. It's all there for me. So I'll click Standards. We have our standard landing page open. I haven't lost any of the PDFs that were part of SAS. I haven't lost any of my core information, but I have a new way of thinking about standards. I can search for standards. I can view standards. I have my vertical viewer. So if I go search for standards, I have the ability to type in a keyword search. If I wanted to search for fractions, I can search for fractions and get every standard and eligible content that has fractions in it. Or I can begin to use my preferences that I established in my profile. And you can see at the top of my screen here, I have the ability to press a button. So if I come to search standards and I'm interested in 4th grade math, I press my 4th grade math button and I get access to all of my mathematics 4th grade standards. Now, if we take a moment and you just imagine what this would be like if I was that teacher and I was interested in ELA, social studies, science, all 4th grade, I don't have to do this search anymore and find different drop-down menus on SAS. I just select my different preferences. I would set up a preference for ELA. I would press ELA. I can get access to those standards with ease. So I set up my one preference. I'm here. I'm looking at these standards, and let me say, gee, I've changed my mind. I'm not interested in 4th grade standards, or perhaps in researching 4th grade standards. I've discovered that I'm curious about what's happening in 5th grade. All I have to do now is press the Choose Grades and Subject button and adjust 4th grade to 5th grade. So you can see I can establish my preferences, but I'm not tied to them. They're really just around to make my life easy, to customize that experience for me as that 4th grade math teacher. And with these, I still have the ability to move from my standard to my eligible content, to my materials and resources, to my assessment piece as well. And just to really restate it, I haven't lost sight of my tools. So if I'm looking at these 4th grade, these 5th grade math standards, and I now say, gee, I'm really interested in how I can add this to a curriculum map that I've bookmarked. I can now go to my curriculum maps and gain access to those. Gee, I'm really interested in how this standard applies and informs my thinking about this PD course that I'm taking. I can go to my SAS and I can click my PD Center courses. I don't have to leave this page. I can still read that standard. If I want to build a lesson, I have access to templates, and I can look at this standard, and it can begin to inform some of the substantive pieces of that lesson. Or likewise, if there's a discussion in communities. It's all here, easily and readily accessible. So from standards, again, I haven't lost my 6 elements. If I want to go to assessment, I have my assessment page. I haven't lost my PDFs or any of my substantive content on assessment, and it's all here. But if I go to the assessment builder, you can begin to see how my preferences are following me. If I want to do a keyword search, I could type in fractions, and I can find all of the assessment questions that are aligned to fractions. I get my subject, my grade, my standard. But if I've established those preferences, I can use them now to just come to Assessment Builder and find my questions by pressing this button and gaining access to all of these items here. And I can add them to my assessment and use the assessment tool historically very similar to how I have in the past. And then really similarly, we have functionality like this in curriculum framework as well. I haven't lost my curriculum framework. I haven't lost the PA instructional frameworks that we work so hard on, the ELA, the math, the library, personal finance. They're all there. But I now have the ability to customize this experience. I don't have menus that I have to go through. I don't have to scroll and remember what I'm interested in. I can establish my preference, customize my experience, press my button from the preferences I've established in my profile, and I get our curriculum framework that we've always had. And if I'm looking at this framework again, similarly, I'm not tied to this preference. If I say, gee, I'm really interested in, you know, first grade math, I can change my subject and grade as I want, and I still have access to the same curriculum framework. So in short, and in this short amount of time that we have here, I really just want to emphasize just a few points that this is a new revisioned portal. It's responsive. You can access it on multiple devices and get full functionality. We've integrated the tools, what were formerly teacher tools, into My SAS so that you can access them from any location without having to leave your substantive content. And we've done our best to try to create a customized user experience and based on your preferences, really push that information to you so that we can create an efficient use of your time. So as we have released this to the field, as people are using this, our goal is to be responsive, to answer any questions, to allay any concerns. And as you go out into the field and begin to conduct your trainings and work closely with educators across the Commonwealth, we would like to position you as best as possible. And to that end, if there's anything that we can do for you to facilitate that, we request your feedback. So if you need revisions to manuals, little 5-minute videos, we're open to hearing what you need, and we would love to make that available to you. So, Jean, I think at this point I'm going to turn this back over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Brian. And I'm going to reiterate what Brian has said. As you start navigating your way through SAS, and there are questions or concerns or issues or missing items we need to know, and Brian reminded me of something this morning. They have migrated 6 years worth of SAS work over a period of about 8 months, and we know it's not a perfect system, and we've discovered that there are some issues. So I just want to give you some sense of what we're doing right now, reviewing and getting feedback. And Brian and PLS and PDE have set some priorities, and the number one priority is if there's something broken, a broken link or something missing, that's priority one in terms of our fix, if you will. If we have something that is not functioning in an optimal manner, we've had some great feedback on our professional learning community. That would be, that sort of thing would be a number 2 priority. And then there are issues of formatting. If you go into, for example, the materials and resources, you'll find there's sort of a helter-skelter array of subjects. It doesn't look pretty, but it works. And then probably number 4 on that list would be things that weren't there that we now think need to be there in terms of enhancements. So again, as you're going through this and working with folks, keep us informed, let us know. And then most importantly, what is it you think you need to go out and do training into your schools, into your districts, into your CTCs? And I would ask that maybe before you do that, and I did the same as well, spend some time going through the site and getting familiarity with it. But again, if you are stymied, don't hesitate to let us know. You can either contact the help desk directly, or you can contact me, and we will work through your issues to seek resolution. So I'm going to take the screen back, if I may, and we'll conclude here very quickly. Okay. So as we're sort of drawing this to closure, and again, Brian, just a quick thank you for your patience as we work through this process. We just have like about 5 minutes of some updates. Angela, you want to do a quick view of the SPP, quick talk about that?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks to everybody. We've now, I think, made it to about 20 of the 29 intermediate units, actually probably more. Yesterday we had a little bit of a hiccup. We had a miscommunication around a time frame, but IU 20 was amazing. Michelle was great, and we were able to coordinate a virtual SPP session. Even though we were all a little stressed, it worked out okay. So thanks to everybody. We are on the second iteration of the proposed measures based on the feedback that we've received to date. And so stay tuned. We will be working with the department next week to try to get feedback on, you know, where the visioning is around all of that. So just thanks to everybody for all your support as we've moved forward with that. Act 82 in general is just wanted to kind of give some quick updates. I know that you're all fielding lots of questions in the field and from the field. There's a couple things that keep coming up. One is with regards to the actual form for summative rating forms. So folks are finalizing 14-15's evaluation as well as beginning 15-16 for temporary professional employees. And I'm getting emails saying, Angela, I went to the PDE website and it still says 14-15 rating form. So I kind of wanted to show you, and I'm going to try to just kind of actually just walk you through this. If you go to Google and you type into the search engine PDE educator effectiveness, you're going to see an archived version of the old PDE website. So when the new administration came in, they put Governor Wolf's name on the old PDE website, but the whole website got rebranded this past summer. But if you just Google PDE educator effectiveness, it'll go to the old website. And people are fooled because it says Governor Wolf on the top of it, but it actually is the old website. The way to access the most up-to-date documents is to actually go to the current PDE website. So go to pde.pa.gov. On the far right-hand side, you'll see drop-down menus. When you click on the drop-down menu, you'll see educator effectiveness. And that's where you'll get the most updated version of the educator effectiveness webpage. For some reason, it's probably something to do with the way Google's logarithm, how it recognizes websites, but the old PDE website is still available in that search engine, but it is not the most up-to-date. So if you're getting that question, the best way to do it is through the actual PDE website, get that link, and then they can bookmark it. So that's been definitely an issue, and so thanks to all of you who have been helping navigate that, but it's definitely been a concern. The other thing that's been coming up, and I guess it's really more about you kind of coordinating with your school districts around problem solving some of the issues with Act 82, is that there's so many unintended consequences and caveats for how particular teachers and administrators are being evaluated given, you know, the regulations as well as the department's recent guidance around the SPP and what to substitute and what not to. The best guidance that I've received and what I just want to share with you, because I know you're fielding these questions, is, and I know it seems like a cop-out, but we can't be in the business of providing kind of legal feedback and guidance to LEAs. And although I'm getting in trouble for doing it a lot of times, someone said to me this morning, you know, you can't be practicing law without a license. I recognize our need to say, okay, you know, here districts, here's how you might think about it. But ultimately, the specifics and the nuances of this are so based on individual school districts, individual collective bargaining units, individual districts' ability to communicate with their staff around how they are implementing Act 82, that we really just need to be constantly guiding them and pointing them to their lawyers. So no, it sounds like a cop-out, but I think that's the best way we can address this right now. The other thing that I've been doing, and I know a lot of you are doing it, is basically just being practical and kind of asking probing questions and getting school district administrators to think about, okay, have we put a plan in place on how we're doing this? Are we consistently applying it? What does consistent application across our district look like? Are all administrators on board? So is special ed addressing, special ed teachers with IEP progress in a similar fashion that the principals are addressing it with the gen ed teachers. So thanks to everybody for your help with that, but I know that there's concern, so just continuing to help LEAs with that is great. And then last but not least, on the educator effectiveness specific, we're trying to get some data together for the feds, and actually we just got another request from them this morning. The first request was on higher ed and whether or not PDE can furnish data that shows that professors in higher ed institutions across the Commonwealth have been getting training in educator effectiveness. So if your IU has provided that training, or if you have any way to tell us or give us an idea as to the numbers of higher ed faculty that have been trained in educator effectiveness, if you could email Jean or I, or both of us, will get that information to Angie Efert. Angie just also asked this morning, and we don't have it on the list here, is that apparently one of the things we committed to and raised to the top was training all teachers and principals in Act 82 and teacher effectiveness, specifically Danielson for teachers and then the related rubrics for the other folks. If, again, you have any idea on kind of the percentage of administrators in your IU that have been trained, and or if that's then been reflected with teachers, if you can get us that data. We just don't really, we're struggling with how to determine those numbers. So if you have any ideas, let us know.
I'm actually going to broaden that higher ed question as well, related to our Race to the Top reporting. If you've done any work with higher ed, I know at least IU 16, for example, has some sort of a connection with Bloomsburg, and you're doing some work. Any connections that you've made in your IUs with higher ed, whether it's a workshop, whether you've provided PD courses, whatever that might be, we're just looking for data in addition to the whole concept of educator effectiveness, but exposure to SAS, standards, things of that nature. So anything that you've done, even if you say, we held a workshop and had approximately 50 higher ed folk or something of that nature, just enough to be able to say, we've done some outreach and we hopefully have connected with some college folk. The last piece that I really wanted to share with you is that some of you are asking what's the status of the graduation requirement. As you know, Senate Bill Act 880 has, I believe it was unanimous. I also think it went through the House. I think there were perhaps some small changes. But I talked to Dave Oakman as recently as this morning, and he said there's really no opposition to this. And once we get that budget up and running and out of the way, this likely will move forward. But what I did was I just took an excerpt from 880 for those of you who may not be intimately familiar with it. And really what they're looking at is, in addition to that hiatus, that 2-year pause, rather than the class of 2017, but the class of 2019, look, if you will, at that first piece there, that we're looking for proficiency in addition to the Keystones, the PBA, and is there some alternate assessments, which I don't think any school district is actually committed to. What might that look like? And I believe there's a task force that will be in operation to say, so for example, might it be the NOCTI, might it be an SAT? And I'm just making up things at this point. But as soon as we know something in terms of, it has become part of regulation, or, you can move forward and advertise with your districts, we'll let you know. That number 2, just for the sake of conversation, you do know the sad story of PBA and the lack of evaluators, and we have, I think, around 1,000 projects in the queue without evaluation of even one evaluator. And I'm meeting with Dave Oakman next week to try to sort of unclog that pipeline. So just wanted to share that with you. Again, when we know more, you'll be the first to know after we're informed. Alrighty. So this is your opportunity. Thank you for your patience as we sort of babbled on here. If any of you have a question, if you'll just type it in the question box. 2 of you have asked about Kristen's wonderful PowerPoint presentation. I did populate it in that Digging Deeper PLC. However, again, I have 1 or 2 small editorial kind of changes to make. As soon as this presentation's over, I'm going to go in and update it, and you'll be able to draw down the docs, which are also in the URL that she suggested to you. But the PowerPoint will be there as well, and you'll be able to pull it down and make it your own. So I think that is the end of the story, other than if you were not part of the November webinar, this is the link to the November webinar. And as soon as we get the link for this webinar, we'll be sure that you're able to access that as well. We have our next webinar scheduled for January 27th at 10 a.m. and Angela and I will do our best to make sure we adhere to that date. We've allowed little or nothing to get in the way, but that change in that SPP date was unavoidable. There are a couple of questions. Angela, do you want to read them?
Yeah, so the first one's from Cindy Murphy. It says, so when the statement of work says mobile SAS, it's just referencing the ability to access from any device anywhere, right? And that's correct.
Yes.
And there's a question about Senate Bill 880 from Brian. If Senate 880 is signed into law, will graduation requirements default back to Chapter 424, high school graduation requirements for the 2015-2016 school year?
No, I don't believe so. I think that graduation project is done and gone, if that's what you're asking about. I think we'll just look forward to that 2-year hiatus, and we're not going to reintroduce something that we've done before. All right? And just the end of the road here are emails for all of us. If you have a question about Lee's College and Career, her email, I'm sure you probably know all of this, Angela, me, Brian, of course, from PLS, and Kristen for her work with Digging Deeper. So, once again, we thank you so much. Wish you a good holiday, and keep in touch, continue your good work. Happy holiday.